This is my contact information up here, and Josie will give you her contact information. If you have questions afterwards, you can feel free to call me. My title is I'm the director of the Center for Excellence in Nursing at Fresno State. That's what I do. I work with nurses on special programs and getting grants, and so I'm obviously always wanting to help minority kids and kids interested in nursing to how do you become a nurse. So I'm always open to phone calls, emails, whatever. Some of my personal barriers that I want to talk to you about, so you know where I come from. I grew up in a very poor family. My parents were migrant workers, and so they would travel the fields, and so I had to stay with my grandparents, and they only spoke Spanish. So until I started school, I really didn't speak any English. I had to learn English, and the kids would always make fun of me because I would say share instead of chair, and lipstick instead of lipstick, and you name it, I was made fun of, but I got through that. Worked out in the fields. I picked cotton, I picked grapes, I picked cherries, tomatoes. Tomatoes were the worst. I hated picking tomatoes. I worked in the packing houses. That's how I made my money to go to school once I got older. And I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in myself because as a minority, you're always told you don't speak until you're spoken to, stay quiet, just be good. So I didn't have a whole lot of confidence. And my father, was always kind of putting us down in many ways. But I always was a dreamer. And when I was out there working, I'd say, someday I'm going to have a nice house. Someday I'm going to have a good job. Someday I'm going to have a nice car. But I was always a dreamer, thinking, what if? My parents didn't have much education. My mother only went to the 8th grade. My father didn't go to school at all, but he was a very smart man. And so they couldn't help me when it came time to go into college. They really didn't have any experience with that. So kind of had to do it on my own. I was the oldest of 6 children, so I was expected to help with the younger kids. And we actually lost all our belongings in a fire. We'd gone to a celebration, and when we came home, the whole house was engulfed in a fire. So we lost everything but the clothes we had on our back. So a lot of barriers. When I got to high school, my counselor said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I want to be a nurse. From the age of 7, I always wanted to be a nurse. I'd see the nurses in their white uniforms. I said, that's what I want to be. And he said to me, he looked at me, he says, no, you're poor, you're Mexican. He said, you're going to be a secretary. And I said, secretary? I don't want to be a secretary. He said, well, we know best, so you're going to be a secretary. So I was put in all these business courses, typing, shorthand, business, all that my junior year. It's the only year I made CSF, by the way, because I aced them all. My senior year, they said, you're going to do work study for 2 periods at a school. You're going to be the secretary for them for 2 periods. So every day I had to walk back and forth to the school to be the secretary. And after doing that, I knew for a fact that I definitely did not want to be a secretary. There's no way I was going to be a secretary. They gave me a full ride scholarship to a business school when I graduated. That was the only scholarship I got. And I turned it back. And my father said, what are you doing? We don't have any money to send you to school. I said, but Dad, I don't want to be a secretary. I want to be a nurse. And he said, well, how are you going to do it? I said, I have no idea. I have no idea except that I know I want to be a nurse. And I will be a nurse. So I went to junior college. I took my science courses there, the local junior college. We only had 1 car, so the only way, I lived out in the country, the only way I could get to the college was to ride the high school bus with my brothers and sisters and then walk over to the college. Well, eventually they realized I'm no longer a high school kid, so they kicked me off the bus. So by that time, I had a friend who lived out by me, and she gave me a ride to college. I applied to a nursing school in San Jose because my uncle helped me, and I had to go up there and take all the tests, and I was admitted. But my family car wouldn't have made it up Pacheco Pass. And so I rode the bus, the Greyhound bus, and here I come into this big fancy nursing school with 1 suitcase, the only suitcase my family had, and a cardboard box tied with twine with the rest of my belongings, and a little AM radio tucked under my arm. And if you could have seen the look on the other classmates that looked at me and said, where did this country hick come from? I'm sure that was their expression, okay? But I got into nursing school. It was a diploma program, 3 years. My junior year, I had to have major surgery. And the nun came to me and said, if you have to be out more than 2 weeks, you will have to drop out and repeat the whole junior year. And I thought, I can't do that. My parents can't afford that. So I said, I won't have the surgery. That was before they have ultrasounds and all the tests now. They had to open you up. So they had a major surgery. I was in the hospital for a week, and the next week I was back in class because they were not going to kick me out of school. And the next week I was back in my clinical rotations. And I graduated with the highest grade point average that year. I finished. In 1968, I graduated as an RN. So I reached my dream. That was my goal. That was my dream. And I reached my dream because I didn't let anything stand in my way. And that's the message that we hope to give you today, is never give up on your dream. I don't care what anybody tells you. You stick with your dream and you stick with it no matter what, and you'll find a way to do it. And we're going to talk about some of the barriers. Now I want Josie to tell you a little bit about her.
When Pilar sent me this screen, I said, this is the most depressing thing I've ever read. But it was true. I gave up my ideas of going back to college and went to work for that bank. It has that little stagecoach thing on it. And just got caught up in life, and the dream stayed back there somewhere. Married, moved to Washington State, divorced, a very abusive person, and had a daughter. So if there were any dreams of anything, but going back to the bank with the stagecoach, that seemed to be what was down my road. And no one in my family had ever been to college. No one had ever graduated. So at age 35, single parent, divorce, no alimony, no child support, I learned about aid to families with dependent children. So I put my daughter and myself on welfare. That's another chapter in the book of life, because the humiliation of that was nothing that I had ever dreamed. But my daughter was borderline asthmatic, and she needed the medical care, and that was I had to have the insurance. A friend of mine was attending school at Samuel Merritt Hospital School of Nursing, which at that time was a 3-year diploma program. And she came into a store where I was working with friends during the Christmas holidays, and she had her pinstripe on, and I said, I always wanted to be a nurse. She goes back to Samuel Merritt. She comes in the next day, and she hands me this packet. And I said, what's this? And she said, I want you to fill it out. I said, Cheryl, you're out of your mind. And she said, no, if this is what you want to do, you should do it. I said, oh, okay, I'll start working on it tonight. She said, no, go up to the office and do it now. I'll take it back for you. Well, on my lunch hour, that's what I did. And I gave it to her, and with that, it was, well, that's the end of that. Then I was told I had to take SAT exams. Oh my God, I'm 35 years old, haven't been to school since I was 17. SATs, I don't even know what that stands for. But they sent me a card with a date and a time, and I went, and I scored higher than most high school graduates, and I couldn't figure it out, except I learned life does have some experience that you can use when taking exams. It stuck with me all the way through school. I then got called for an interview. And when that was over, I said, well, that's the end of that. And then got called in to do a physical, and then I went, oh, and that's the end of that. And then I got a letter that said, congratulations. And I went, now, what do I do now? Well, first of all, I had to break it to my family, because I decided, yes, I did want to do that. It was my dream. Well, they pretty much wrote me off as somewhat crazy, which they always did, because I was the black sheep of the family. I was the one that always fought back. I was the one that was always in trouble. My father used to tell me that I would be lucky if I lived to be 25. Well, Dad, I'm 76 now, and I did it. But the idea was that everybody was throwing those barriers in front of me, but I went ahead and I did it. I had a couple of my classmates remind me that I was as old as their mother. That made me feel so good. They were 17, I was 35. They welcomed me. But I was a live-out student, and they were live-in students, and yet they spent their nights at my house with sleeping bags because they hated living in the dorms. So I learned to study and learned to get into those habits again with them and their help, which I will be forever grateful. My specialty has always been pediatrics. I love kids. I love children. And even when I worked in Southeast Asia and Africa twice in Somalia, I was always with the kids, except the last time, which is another book, another chapter. I was responsible for the building of a hospital in Baidoa, Somalia, and that's what I did. It gives truth to the meaning of nurses can do anything. Just give us a project, give us 5 minutes to think about it, we'll figure it out. Critical thinking is what it's called, critical thinking. The night I graduated from Samuel Merritt, they were all there, which pleased me to no end because they really did give me a hard time. What are you doing? What are you thinking? 35, you have this child to support. My daughter decided she wouldn't become a nurse when she grew up, but she works at St. Francis Memorial Hospital in the foundation. It raises money to keep the hospital, financially well, doing special projects and stuff. So in a circuitous way, it stuck with her about nursing and healthcare and what it means and what you can do with it. And my message is to all of you who are interested, thinking about it, not sure, it is the grandest profession you can ever become a part of. And if you know that for the past 10 years, when a survey has been done nationwide, who is the most trusted profession in this country for the past 10 years, it has been nursing. Not government, not the military, not, the lawyers, the doctors, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's nursing, 10 years in a row. That's got to mean something, who we are and what we do, and that we're passionate about what we do. And I guarantee you, when you are a nurse and you have neighbors, before they call the doctor, they're going to call you. Go, Pilar.
I want to go back. I became a nurse in 1968. I started work as a staff nurse in a hospital. I could count on one hand the number of minority nurses, and so it's always been a passion of mine to help to get more minority nurses. In the state of California, which is about 50% Hispanic, close to it, only 6.6% of the nurses are Hispanic. So we have a wide gap there. We also have a wide gap with American Indian. We have a wide gap with African American nurses. But anyway, I became a nurse in 1968. I started as a staff nurse, and I finished after 37 years of hospital work as a chief nurse of a specialty hospital in Fresno. I then returned to school after my sons had grown up to get my bachelor's. I was in class with my kids my son's age. It was embarrassing, but I did it anyway, and then went on to get my master's. And I became a director of a nursing program down in Chula Vista, moved all my stuff down there, and decided, okay, I'm retiring, and decided to move back. But I got a call about another job. See, you can't quit, you can't retire. I flunked retirement twice now. I flunked it twice, okay? And so I've been recognized in the past for my work with minority students. So most of the obstacles and barriers that you see are self-perceived. They're perceived obstacles. We put limits on ourselves. We do that all the time. I can't do that. There's no way I can make that happen. We don't give ourselves enough credit. We're smart people. We know how to get from point A to point B. We've gone through school. We've made it through school. And we sometimes let others determine our destiny. Oh, you don't want to be a nurse. No, that's too hard. That's too hard. You don't want to do that. Do something easy. So you can get a job. Go out and make money. We can go out and have fun. And we let other people talk us into something that we really don't want to do. We become passive in our actions. We let things happen to us rather than saying, no, I want to be a nurse. Like I said, I want to be a nurse. And we tell ourselves, I can't, rather than I can and I will. When my son was about, 8, 9 years old, my youngest son, he would say, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't. And I said, Jeffrey, there is no such word as I can't. As long as it's not illegal, immoral, unethical, and the only word is I can and I will. And we have to tell ourselves that. When people put obstacles in front of us, you say, no, I can. I said, if you can't go in the front door, figure out how to get in the back door. There's always a way around to make it happen. Okay? Some of the self-barriers that we perceive, I'm not good, I'm not smart enough, we tell ourselves. I couldn't be a nurse. I got to take all these science courses. I'll never make it. I'll never make it. So we stop ourselves. Or I hate the science courses. Or we say, my parents don't have money to send me to college. You know, why even try it? There's no money, I can't go. And it costs money to go to college. Yes, but there's scholarships, there's grants, there's loans. Do you know that a few years ago, there was 25,000 nursing students in California? And as nurses, every time we renew our license every 2 years, $10 of that renewal fee goes into a scholarship fund. And in 2010, only 250 students applied for that scholarship fund. Now, why is that? That money goes unused. There's money out there, you just have to go out and get it.
What is it called?
It's through the OSHPD, OSHPD.
I just want to interject here also, as you research your schools,
The
schools
aid.
have money. What they're not going to do is come and ask you if you need money. You're going to need to go to them and say, I need the money. The other thing I found was a lot of retired nurses associations. I drugged that poor little 5-year-old, and they paid $5,000 of my junior year for me to continue and not to drop out because money was getting hard. And I did work as a nurse aide across the street at Providence Hospital, but that's putting a lot of stress on yourself. The grants and the scholarships are not repayable. The loans are, you know, and usually the government will wait. But if you can avoid that, write the essay, get the scholarship. I'm the president of the Northern California Association of Healthcare Recruiters. This is the first year in 8 years that we are not offering a scholarship because nobody in the last 2 conferences applied. That's $2,000 somebody just didn't get.
We're going to hold the questions to the end. Okay, so
Yeah,
to the end.
an essay of 250 words and it gives you $2,000. That means you don't have to go to Starbucks to work. You can stay home and focus, which is what we want you to do.
And there's loans that are loan forgivable.
Yeah.
You work so many years in a certain area and they write off your loan, or 85% of your loan. And we'll talk more about that. Some people say, I'm tired of school. It's best to get a job and make money because, you know, I don't have any money. I feel like I'm poor all the time. My kids, when they were in college, said, Mom, I'm so poor. And I said, okay, wait a minute. Let's think about this. Do you have a roof over your head? Yes, because I paid their rent, right? I said, do you have food to eat? Yes. I said, then you're not poor. You think you're poor because you don't have money to go out with your friends, but you're getting an education, you're not poor. So families sometimes put barriers on you. They'll say, you know, enough school, you've got to go to work now. You need to bring in a paycheck. We need your money, so it's time for you to go to work. Or you need to take care of your brothers and sisters. Who's going to take care of them? I can't pay for babysitting. You're the babysitter now. Or they say, we don't have the money for you to continue with school. High school, that's enough. That's enough for you. You know, go to work. We need your income. So those are some things that you sometimes hear families say. The community may tell you you're not smart enough. I mean, my counselor basically told me I wasn't smart enough to be a nurse. I should be a secretary, and he was bound and determined to make me a secretary. Okay? Or they'll say, you need to get married. It's time for you to get married, you know, start having a family. That's what your role is. Or you won't make it, you know. You'll just never make it. And then when you fail something, they say, see, I told you you wouldn't make it. You know, they lay that other guilt trip on you. Or they'll say, you graduated from high school, isn't that enough already? Why a nurse? Choose a different career that won't take you so long, that's not as hard. You know? Be a CNA, it's easier, it takes less time, less money. So instead of encouraging you to become a nurse, they discourage you with these comments. Then there's the financial barriers that you think about. Too expensive to go to college. You know, what's the difference between grants, scholarships, and loans? People don't understand that. You need to understand the differences. As Josie was saying, you don't have to pay grants and scholarships back. You do have to pay loans back. And nursing school is too expensive. I'll be in debt forever. You know, it's not that expensive if you go out and get the scholarships and apply for those scholarships and grants. And I won't be able to get the financial help. You know. Some families think that it's too expensive. They can't see that further down the road, by going to school, you're actually going to help yourself and help them at the same time because you'll be making more money. And friends. Some of them will say, oh, you're no fun anymore. All you do is study. You don't come to parties anymore. You don't have any fun anymore. You're no fun anymore. All you do is study, study, study. You got your face in that book. That's all you do. So some people say, well, they'll think I'm trying to be better than them. Oh, you think you're better because you're going off to college and I'm not. Or my friends are working and making money and I'm still, trying to scrounge every penny that I get because I don't have any money. We've got to stop. We've got to stop with those negative feelings. You've got to turn the negatives into a positive, okay? You stop yourselves when you hear yourself saying that and say, how do I turn this into a positive? How do I turn a negative into a positive? Maybe I don't think I have the money, but where can I go to get it? We just told you some things, okay? Maybe I do have to help with the kids, but how can I do that and still go to school? Does that mean I take night classes? Does that mean I, do something else or get, some help some other way? If they don't want me to leave to go away to school, how do I convince them that I'm going to basically better myself and help them at the same time? You have to turn that negative into a positive so that it becomes, instead of an obstacle, it becomes a way to propel you to reach your goal. Sometimes you just have to be bold and take action. You say, I'm going to do this. So get rid of your fear. If the fear is what's stopping you, get rid of it. Just say, fear, go away. I'm not going to even pay attention to you. Because if I pay attention to you, I'm going to talk myself out of it. How many of you have talked yourselves out of doing things? All of us probably. At some point in time have talked ourselves out of doing something that we know we should have done. You want to set a goal and stick with it. I set my goal of being an RN, and I reached that goal. Was it easy? No. I was the only minority in my whole class. I was homesick all the time. I wanted to just give up and go home. But my mother laid such a guilt trip on me. She said, if you drop out of school, you're not only going to disappoint your family, you're going to disappoint your whole town. I thought, whoa, I can't do that. Okay. Talk to counselors, talk to teachers, ask them about it. Ask for guidance. Find a mentor. Find a nurse and talk to that nurse. I was a mentor for a gal at the City College, and she called me one day. She was halfway through a program, and she said, that's it, I'm going to quit. I said, why do you want to quit? You're halfway through the program. Why would you quit now? Well, I just got a D on my test. My child is 3 years old. I never have time to spend with him. My friends say I'm no fun anymore, so I might as well just quit. I said, no, you don't want to do that. Let me give you some ideas. I said, why don't you try getting up like at 3 o'clock in the morning and study like before a test. Your son's asleep, so you're not taking any time away from your son. Your friends aren't going to know that you're up unless you call and tell them, and why would you do that? Because they're going to get mad at you for calling them at 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, and you can study and it's fresh in your mind. I said, just try that. So she tried it. She called me up a week later. I got a B on my test. I got a B on my test. I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. I said, great. I was asked to speak at Fresno State one time to high school students. They said, it's going to be you and another nurse. Guess who that other nurse was? It was this one gal. All I spent was a half an hour on the phone talking to her. She made it through. She did fine. And sometimes that's all it takes. So getting a mentor is important. If you're having trouble with your grades, get a tutor to help you, especially with the science courses. There's no shame in getting a tutor to help you try to get through a course. That's what they're there for. Join a health career club, a future nurses club if they have it, so you're around people that want to do this. Join study groups that you study together. Volunteer at a hospital so you make sure that this is what you want to be. There's nothing worse than becoming a nurse and then saying, oh, I can't stand the sight of blood. Well, guess what? You're going to be seeing a lot of blood as a nurse, okay? So when you're in the hospital, you get used to it. I was doing a presentation one time for parents and kids, and one of the parents said to me, you mean my daughter may have to work holidays? I said, yes, the hospitals, we operate 7 days a week. You mean she may have to work nights? I said, yes. Well, if she works nights, when's she going to sleep? I said, during the daytime when the other people that work nights sleep. She had no concept of this. I said, we don't put hospitals on automatic pilot. Somebody has to work those shifts. Taking action. Like I said, never give up on your dream. Learn more about the profession and make sure this is what you really want to do. Ask questions, read up on it, get on the internet. And this is a quote that I like to use because it means so much. It says that success comes from doing the things you least want to do when you least want to do them. When you least want to take that test, when you least want to study, when you least want to go to a class, but you go anyway, that's when success comes. Okay? So I love this quote because it says so much that, you know, you got to do something even though you don't want to, but you get success from it. So in overcoming some of the barriers, what do you have to do? You have to believe in yourself. Believe that you can do it. Tell yourself, I can do this. I want to do it. I can do this. You have to be assertive. A lot of us are very passive. Oh, I can't speak up. I used to be passive. I don't know what happened to me. Somewhere in my career, I became very assertive, almost to the point of aggressiveness. But, you know, it's like, no, don't tell me I can't do that, because if I want to do it, I will do it. I'll figure out a way how to do it. Reach out to others for help. Don't be afraid to reach out to others and say, how can I, you know, what do I need to do what I want to do? Who can I talk to? Ask questions. Inquire. Empower yourself. Give yourself the right to keep with your dream and not let anybody talk you out of it. Because the minute they start talking you out of it, then you start questioning yourself. Oh, well, maybe it is going to be too hard. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should find something else to do instead of being a nurse. Okay? You got to realize the dream, set your goals, and go for it, because only you can stop you. Nobody else can stop you. You're the only one that can stop you. You may think that others have the power, but in reality, you're the only one that has the power to stop yourself. Nobody else has the power to do that. Whether it's money, whether it's, you know, grades, you have the power to improve. You have the power to, you know, set your goals. You have the power to make the difference in your life to do what it is that you want to do. And don't let anybody stop you. As a minority, I had many times people, you know, say things and comments to me. And if I would have let those comments, you know, stop me, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm writing a book, and it's called But I Want to Be a Nurse. And if that counselor was still alive, I would take him a signed copy and say, here, I told you I was going to be a nurse, and I became a nurse. Okay? Because I believed in my dream and didn't let anybody stop me going forward. And through trials and tribulations, through hardships, through whatever barriers I had to go through to jump and the hoops that I had to jump through, I kept going forward. I didn't look back. That's one thing I'd say. Once you make a decision, don't question yourself and look back. Just go forward, because otherwise you get yourself down. So just go forward. Okay, now I want you to watch the video. We have a video there that's supposed to play. And this is called Breaking the Barriers. And a few years ago, I went up and down the state, and I interviewed nurses, nursing students and nurses, about what they had to go through to overcome the barriers to reach their goal. So I wanted to share this video with you because it's very moving in some of their comments and what they said. One gal in particular, she lived in San Jose. I want to tell you this story. She lived in San Jose. The only nursing program she could get into was at Saddleback College. Anybody know where Saddleback is? Down Orange County, in Orange County. So every week she commuted from San Jose to Orange County. And her mother would be on the phone with her as she's driving home on Friday nights to keep her awake as she's driving home. That was a commitment on that gal's part, okay? That's a lot of work going back and forth, not to mention mileage and gas. But that's the work. Okay.
Your thumb drive? Do you have your thumb drive?
Yeah. Hold this. I thought it was on there already.
And here I am.
Let's see. I think it's that one. I don't think it's that one. I think it's another one. Orange, yeah. Okay. Empty out my whole purse here.
They can't use the disc.
Can you put a disc in there? We have a disc also. You got it, Josie?
Is that Breaking the Barriers? Is that the one? We got enough. Okay, they've got the desk.
Okay,
Here you go.
thanks. Okay, we may have to turn down the lights a little bit.
Somebody got the lights?
Let's get it up first.
Is this it?
Just gotta hit the play. Can you see that okay? Thank you.
Not that it changed, but how
Often, minority students facing barriers,
12.
obstacles, and challenges to entering and completing a nursing program. These individuals overcame their barriers and reached their goal, and you can too.
My dad had said a female shouldn't be a nurse. A nurse is considered someone like a waitress. So if you want to do waitressing, you probably make more money going to a restaurant. I don't think you should be a nurse because you're also going to be taking care of male patients. Your job is to get married and have children. I just said, well, I want to be a nurse. I want to take care of people. I don't want to be a waitress. So I would go out to my sisters and say, can you please quiz me? I have a test coming up. I go to my brothers, can I please do a physical exam on you so I can practice this? I have a test coming up on Friday. So we would kind of have to do it in a different area where my parents were, so they wouldn't see. Because if she would see that I was practicing, then I would have to get another sermon from them. I think it's very difficult for us in the Hispanic culture to try and break the barriers with our beliefs and our parents. We're raised very differently, and parents believe that by the time you're 17, 18, you should get married and start a family.
I come from a Native American background, and the culture is such that we were not taught that it was an option to go to college. It was never discussed with us. It was considered that I would grow up, get married, and have children. The goal was to graduate from high school, and that was it.
My mom and dad, my uncles and aunts, older people that I know at church, you know, all of them had a certain image of nursing, and they didn't think that it was for a male. My dad would say to me, 근데 pharmacy나 아니면 doctor나 아니면 lawyer 하면 네 비즈니스 네가 만들어서 돈을 더 만들 수 있잖아. 안 그래?
Knowing from the age of 7 that I wanted to be a registered nurse, and being told in high school that because I was poor and Hispanic, I needed to be a secretary, and being directed that way, really told me that I needed to keep my dream alive, and I needed to not let anybody talk me out of my dream.
It was a dream that I had that I didn't think was possible for a long time, and I didn't know if I could do it, so I just started one class at a time, and got through the program.
The senior pastor of the church that I go to, he would always be supportive of me financially. He would always secretly come by. He would give. There was one time when he gave me $500 to go to school, and I always remember that. You know, the community is. You'd be surprised at how supportive they are.
Now we're starting to break a few of those barriers, and we're trying to teach the parents that an education is going to take their kids a lot further than getting married and starting a family. They can do all of that, but you need to be educated first.
He came to my graduation and there was a smile on his face. Just, it wasn't, saying that he didn't directly tell me I'm proud of you, but his smile was enough to tell me that, you did well. Good job.
My dad now talks about it and tries to encourage the other family members. I never encourage you guys to go to school, but I see where your sister is at, and I really want you guys to try and look into going back to school. I didn't know it at the time that it was important, but now that I see how well she does and how happy she is, he does encourage the rest of the siblings and nephews and nieces and grandchildren.
In the state of California, which is so diverse, there are not enough minority nurses representative of the population that we serve. And so we need more minority nurses that can be able to care for patients of different cultures, different ethnic groups, that understand the different beliefs of these cultural groups to provide excellent care.
Culturally competent care refers to the fact that you are able to connect with that patient's culture and their practices and their beliefs, and being able to incorporate all of that into your nursing practice. And when you're providing interactions or when you're providing care to the patient of similar cultural background as yourself, you're able to better understand what are some of the healthcare practices and beliefs that may aid that patient in the healing process. It may, be related to alternative therapies, food choices, as well as communication.
We have a large number of Hispanics in California, and we only 7.5% of the nurses in California are Hispanic. We have a large number of African Americans in California, and only 4.1% of the nurses in California are African American. So there's great disparities.
The population of patients that we serve, especially in California, is so diverse that we need a lot more minority nurses.
There are a lot of older generation Asian men, women, elderly.
Losing my income has been pretty detrimental to me here. Because you have to survive in the program. You have to maintain your overhead. I had a tenant in there who didn't pay her rent. And since I didn't have enough income to fall back on to pay the mortgage, I had to choose. Do I pay my mortgage? Do I pay my tuition? I paid my tuition.
In the last semester, I told my sons, this is it. This is the last semester, last spring. I'm not stopping. And, come May, I'm going to be graduating. And my son said, phew, finally, and I said, we're almost done. And he said, we, because he knew that we, in Compass, them benefiting when we graduated.
I lost the house, but I'm gaining my degree in nursing. I can always get another house. Obtaining this DSN is priceless at this point. I can buy another house. I had just gotten the notice that I was in the nursing program, that we were going to have orientation I get this phone call that my grandmother, she's being carried off to the hospital, and we get to the hospital, she needs to have surgery. When she comes out of surgery, she's doing okay. I go home and sleep for 2 hours, come to orientation. And still to this day, I really don't know what was completely said in orientation, but I was there, And the whole entire time I knew that my grandma wasn't going to make it. My grandma always told me that I was to be a nurse. And, it's just, when she passed, it just took something out of me. And it was just, I wanted my grandmother to go with me to nursing school. See, the great thing out of that whole experience at the hospital was that they were nurses there that were so caring, so lovely. Just telling my family what's going on in detail, where I didn't have to go back and explain, this is what they just said to you, or, that motivated me more to also, come into school and be, the best student I can be. I went online. I wanted to see what the African American nurses looked like back in the day, And so I found this picture, the group of African American women, and the old nurse hats, and their long white dresses and their sweaters, looking at them, knowing that they made it and things were even rougher for them at that time, and here I am with this perfect opportunity, to be like them but be better because the technology is better and we have so much, these resources that we have, and and I have all this, and I can use it and give, a new name to who I am and what nursing is about and being African American.
Success comes from doing the things you least want to do when you least want to do them. Never give up on your dream.
Anything you can do in this country, anything you can be when you want to be. For my laptop, my password is sleep. Because it would remind me I have to turn off that laptop and go to sleep. Because you do sleep because it's, you don't want to fail something they do for so long. They want to do. So, lack of sleep, that's the only thing you have to do. Sleep is what you have to give up. Everything else is nothing. If you really want it, you have to stick to it because it's going to pay off at the end, and it's doable.
Now we have some time for questions, I think. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
We have to repeat the question.
The question is, I mentioned working in Southeast Asia and in Africa twice, specifically Somalia. In the Southeast Asia was 1979 when the Khmer Rouge had taken over Cambodia, and thousands of refugees were coming across the border. And we received word as a nurse from someone who I used to do airlifts out of Southeast Asia when Vietnam fell, contacted me and said, we're putting a team together, do you want to go? Does the sun rise in the east? Yes, of course I want to go. And so we were stationed and we built a rudimentary tent and started admitting children, and some of them undocumented orphans and so on. From there, I went back to work when I think I was there 10 weeks. I went back to work at Children's Oakland, and I really knew I was never going to be satisfied with that nursing again. I wanted back out in the field. I received a call from the director again, Maria Eitz in San Francisco, and she said, I have the Somali ambassador here and the actor, I don't know if you've heard of John Amos. They were at her house in San Francisco, so they invited me over, and they wanted to work with the World Health Organization in doing a growth and development study with the Somali children, do supplemental feedings and an immunization program, and was I interested? I went back to Children's and resigned again. I spent 6 months then there setting up that program in a city, in a town called Belatwain through the World Health Organization. The third time was in 1992. I was home doing some contractual work for travel agencies within the United States, writing their contracts, doing their bids. And I happened to have on CNN News, and Senator Nancy Kassenbaum was on testifying before a Senate subcommittee about what the situation was in Somalia and what could go on, what help was needed. And there was a drought, and people, you saw the pictures in Life magazine, children starving to death. And the ear perked up, and I went, oh, been there, done that. So I called her office in Washington, D.C., like Pilar says, we learn about how to be assertive, aggressive. And so I called her office in Washington, D.C., and she told me about this organization in Southern California, the International Medical Corps. And I called them. And they wanted to know if I could leave that Saturday. Hello, I have a daughter, I have a house, I have to do some paperwork, and I have to have a party. You have to have a going away party because you know what you're getting yourself into. 2 weeks later, I was in Somalia. It is, I think of, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was certainly the summer of my discontent. I was shot at, held hostage, lost my appendix, things like that. But I got that hospital built, and it was up and running when I left 8 months later. I think to me sometimes it's the best work I ever did. I had the freedom to be the nurse I was trained to be. I had the freedom not to worry about malpractice and liability. And when you had to do it, you had to do it in order to save the life of the person you were taking care of. And particularly at that time in Somalia, it was a war zone. And the Marines came and did their thing and so on, but still we were able to do what we set out to do. And I look at Somalia now and it hurts my heart because it went back in time instead of, for all of the countries that assisted that country, it all went for nothing. And that's the sad part. But as I reunite with some of the members on the team that I was with and we talk about it, at that time when we were there, and for those who came shortly before us and those who stayed after we were gone, we did do good work. We did accomplish a lot. I will never regret it. International Medical Corps, Los Angeles, International Rescue Committee, one of the world's oldest and most renowned organizations, Medicine Sans Frontiers, Save the Children, all of them were there in the town of Baidoa. We worked together as teams, and it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. If you're interested in doing that work, see me afterwards. I have a business card. You can contact me. I can put you in touch. There should be some nursing experience in your background in order to call them and say, I want to go. They do pay a stipend. They'll pay your fare to wherever you go. They'll give you a salary. It isn't going to make what you do here, but it's the work that you do. They even have programs in the United States in the poorer communities. There's a lot to be done, not only worldwide, but certainly even in this country.
Just goes to show that nurses can go anywhere.
Oh, let me tell you, we can go anywhere, we can do anything. And we are one of the very few professions that can actually do that. All you need is your nursing license, your CPR card, your passport, and a visa approval, and you're on your way.
Yeah, thank you guys for
Thank you.
Please give a round of applause to our speakers.
Thank you.